we heading to Tampa Bay. But before we, punch our ticket and get aboard the plane or the jet, I guess the jet, if you
or
will.
the ship.
The ship. Oh, I don't know. Are we taking a ship down to Tampa? Anyway. Before we get whatever vessel there, we need to talk to somebody, somebody about the Bucs. We need to go behind enemy lines. All right. This is Third Party Thursday, and we are here to dissect the X's and O's with somebody who knows about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's get it. It's Boy Green meets Wudi.
Can you guys help us get a jet chant here? Yeah, going.
Oh.
Okay, yeah. Come on in.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go!
J-E-T-S, jet! Let's go! J-E-T-S, jet! Let's go!
Third Party Thursday.
Chris joining us here on the program with a capital P here on the program.
Jake Asman, come on down. How you doing, good sir?
Wow, what an intro. I mean, Boy Green is known for having the intro, but Wudi, that was unreal, man. Thanks for the kind words, son.
We are men of many names.
My favorite Austrian Jets fan right there,
Nice.
baby. Boy Green meets Wudi.
Welcome to another episode of Boy Green Meets Wudi. It is your boy James Wudi, and you already know we are Wudi rocking everywhere. Right here, the boy who became king, rocking the BG on the fitted. He is none other than Mr. Paul Hesden Jr. But as you already know, it is Thursday, a special type of Thursday. It is Third Party Thursday, as my man's is doing over there. And today, it's not every day we get an esteemed guest. That's exactly what we have today, because we have the lead writer and managing editor of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for USA Today, none other than Mr. Andrew Harbaugh. Come on down. How you doing, our good sir?
I'm doing great. I got to say, I don't know how anybody needs coffee and energy drink or anything after that. And I'm really disappointed, Paul. I was expecting a LA Knight style after the Paul Hesden Jr. Yeah. I mean,
which I wanted to do. I'm going to be honest. So it was in my soul. I did want to belt it out at the top of my lungs, but I didn't want to interrupt Rudy's intro. So thank you for putting that in there. I love that, baby.
Hey, happy to help. I'm the Dwayne Wade to your LeBron at this point. So
throw up the alley.
Our fellow bearded individual. So Andrew Harbaugh, thanks for taking the time, brother, for this Third Party Thursday and Jets Bucs. It should be an interesting contest, my friend.
Yeah, interesting is definitely the word to use based on every day at this point going into week 3. I mean, there's several teams that are beaten up going into it, but I mean, no offense to the Jets, but I think the Bucs right now are taking the lead at this point for let's play charades and Uno draw fours, and we're going to elevate this person and steal from this practice squad and see how it goes. So Jason Light's definitely doing his best to earn that salary for this year.
Well, let's get into that, because to your point, there is a reunion that I'm not sure if a lot of people are aware of, but it is a thing. And it is with all the injuries that Tampa has, and some in a very serious nature, including Cody Mack, who is out here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And instead, they dive into a former Jets pool. Dan Feeney, baby. Dan Feeney helping out the cause on the 53-man roster, one of the greatest mullets of all time. So he's a part of those contributions. But in all seriousness here, Andrew, let's dive into some of those biggies, because from Cody Mack to freaking Kalijah Cansey on the defensive side of the football with some season-ending injuries this week, plus other injuries you guys are managing too. There is a lot to unpack there for Tampa Bay heading into week 3.
Yeah, no, and it's funny. All offseason, I wrote this team's a Lombardi contender if it's healthy, which, I mean, you could write for almost any team in the NFL. But last year on defense, they took a lot of the beating. Antoine Winfield Jr. was injured to start the year, never really was himself. He's been great so far and healthy, knock on wood. Kalijah Cansey also started the year rough last year with a calf injury, never really found his step. Obviously, he's not going to have a chance to do that this year either. Levante David's been missed the Iron Man, Cal Ripken Jr., so to speak, for the defense thus far, but everyone else around him has just been taking a beating, to say the least. So it's going to be very interesting, especially on offense. Offense is just taking – I don't know what it is. I have one of my writers every time something bad happens, I message her, and I'm like, just not to ruin your day. And today she told me she's looking for Etsy witches at this point because there's nothing else you can do to. And I said yesterday, for any of the Ted Lasso fans, I fully believe they need to have the go to the 50-yard line of Raymond James. Everyone needs to bring something that means something to them, and they need to burn it and hope that somehow this bad juju goes away. Because honest to God, I have no idea what else can be done at this point. It's insane the level they're at.
Yes, it's definitely not great. You know, I wish every team plays at full strength. But Andrew, just fun fact, if you're, worried about limping into this game, the Jets usually get beat down pretty bad by teams missing great players. So, I don't think there's a lot to worry about there. I will say this, because when we look at the Jets, we look at the Bucs, there's some similarity, right? We just talked about Dan Feeney. There's a couple of players that I'm sure fans are looking at that have been on both teams. But what the Jets are hoping for this season overall is that Justin Fields, and this is a name that they keep throwing around, is that Justin Fields can be the Baker Mayfield. Just one of those stray cats, just going from home to home, and now suddenly, finds a place, and I'd imagine for the foreseeable future, Baker's that guy. So just taking a step back from the game, in total, could you tell us, in your opinion, like what you think the difference was there in Tampa? What made Tampa work for Baker when he was bouncing around, just learning the playbook in 3 days, and then, doing what he did with the Rams, and, how he finally got it to work? Maybe there's some things that we can look for this season to see if it's clicking for our guy, Justin Fields.
I really think it was it's such a simple, not a great answer, but it's an honest one. I think it came down to the veteran leadership in the locker room and the coaching staff. And I think it's one of those things where when he was in Cleveland, they had Freddie Kitchens, who they thought was going to be the guy, and painted this offense for him. And just, you want to talk about from midnight struck on Freddie Kitchens, and he didn't turn back into a pumpkin. He turned into a squash that had been sitting out in the sun for about 9 months at that point. With all due respect to Freddie Kitchens. But then he goes to Carolina, and obviously Carolina's still not in a good place. They can't do much with Bryce Young. And then he goes to Los Angeles, has that short week with Sean McVay, gets in a good coaching staff, good team around him, and everything's sane, and you see what he can do. And the Bucs obviously took a chance on that. And I think they have, obviously, with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, I talked about Levante David earlier, Todd Bowles has been around for a while. There's a lot of stability there, and I think that plays a lot into Baker. And I also think he had a lot of maturing and growing up to do at the same time. Like when he got to Tampa, became a dad, I think that played a lot in him kind of settling down nerve-wise and just play style. He's still a complete competitor, like all week. Like they beat the Texans, but he's still going back and forth with Gardner Johnson. So, I mean, he's still his Kansas 50-yard line, Oklahoma matchup self deep down. But no, I think it's one of those things where guys just – and there was a show I was listening to, not to steal anybody else's comment, but it really, I thought, was a home run, where quarterback development right now from college to the pros, I think, is at an all-time low. And that's what the one show I was listening to was saying. And I think it's one of those things where we're seeing so many guys who were high draft picks getting these extra chances because they're getting older and their minds are kind of getting sharper, and they see how it works to stay in the league. That's why you have a Carson Wentz sticking around in Minnesota. Tyrod Taylor is sticking around and getting all these extra chances, as well. And I think for Fields, I personally, I think he should have been the guy last year in Pittsburgh. I don't know what they wanted to do with Russell Wilson. I say that with him coming off like a 400-yard passing week. But I just think it's one of those things where the league is not getting what they want out of the younger guys. So they're having a lot more faith in these, I hate to say middle-aged, but for NFL career, middle-aged careers, giving them a chance to redesign themselves and kind of be a little bit more of a stable situation. And to make that for your Jets, I think Aaron Glenn, as much as the media seems to hate him for what he does with the press conferences, I think he's the right guy and the right mindset to kind of be the leader for that locker room for a Justin Fields type where he knows he's going to have his back. And I think you have enough of those high draft picks who are now been around the league for a while. They're tired of losing. Same thing you had with the Bucs for a while, where they were the same boat until Tom Brady showed up. And once they started winning, it completely changed everything. So it just takes the right situation and the right chemistry for everything to click. And obviously Justin Fields week 1, you saw that for 3 4/5 of the game was the guy. Like you were like, oh my gosh, this is what it can be. And then last week obviously wasn't great, but definitely there are flashes there, and I think there's reason to be optimistic with them.
And let's give a shout out here. David Foley just joined the Boy Green Coffee Club, baby. David Foley, now 3 raffle tickets for our contest. Thanks for joining our YouTube membership group there. We appreciate it. Now, let's go to Dr. Harbaugh here. You talked about a lot of the injuries, and it just came in, so let's give a shout out to the Thursday injury report, with us being a little bit later than normal today. Hey, we get the injury report, baby. So there's a lot of bad for both of us here, Andrews. I'm going through this thing. I'll go to Tampa Bay because you are the Tampa Bay guy, a guy I freaking loved in the draft. And I did an interview with Trevor Sikkema earlier this week, and I just yelled at him about him taking the player I loved, which was Emeka Egbuka. And for the second straight day of practice, he was not available. He did not practice on Wednesday, and now it just came through. He did not practice on Thursday with hip and groin injuries. He was the only one for the Buccaneers that did not practice. The list is a lot longer for the Jets that did not practice. We can get into that perhaps a little bit later. So let's start with Emeka Egbuka. Obviously, the Bucs valued him very highly. He was a first-round draft choice, but Chris Godwin has been limited throughout this week. We have not seen his debut this season based on the injury from last year. Mike Evans is still Mike Evans. So how big of a piece has Emeka Egbuka been, especially filling in for the void that exists for Godwin? And if he is out, 2 straight days of no practice is not an ideal start to the week in terms of his services and whether or not those will be available. Who is set to step up if he's out as well?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you miss 2 weeks, not 2 weeks, good Lord. It seems like it, though, with everybody. 2 days of practice. It's definitely not good, and obviously Friday is going to be really big. Like, even if he's just limited, that would be a little bit of an optimistic window. I remember they had to wrap him up on the sideline against Houston on Monday, and there was a chance they had to score a touchdown to Egbuka late in the 4th. And he almost couldn't finish that route. And I think if he would have had his second touchdown for the second straight week. But in his absence, which again, I think the team's going to be very cautious now with injuries because I don't think they can afford to have anybody else miss significant time. But that being said, I think in his absence, Sterling Shepard will be seen as the guy to step up. He's always shown a good connection with Baker going back to them being at Oklahoma together. In his absence, too, there's Cameron Johnson, who's mainly on special teams as the return guy. Tez Johnson was a healthy scratch last week. He was a 7th-round pick. He might be able to finally make his debut and get some touches. So the nice part is when you have someone like Baker Mayfield, going back to Cleveland, he never really had a favorite target, which for fantasy players can be just the most menacing thing to deal with. But at the same time, it makes him adapt to situations like this. So again, Mike Evans is still around. Perhaps Kate Otten finally gets it together. I've been writing about that for weeks. We actually just had a piece post about that where he's going into a contract year. And apart from 3 weeks last season, he's really just kind of been a guy to move around in the offense. Maybe Otten steps up and becomes a target. But yeah, I would say missing 2 days of practice like that, Egbuka's not shaping up to be in a good spot. And like I said, he did have that one route where it should have been a touchdown if he could have finished it, but he clearly was in pain, but he was still chugging through it on Monday.
All right, let me just keep going with Dr. Harbaugh here. Again, our resident doctor for all things Buccaneers injuries and more here on Boy Green Meets Wudi. Make sure the 200 people that are in the room like the video, hit subscribe if you're watching live, and if you're watching after the fact. Again, I shared that was the only player who did not practice for the Bucs. Everyone else was at least limited for Tampa Bay. Another one I think a lot of people are curious about, both we could go Chris Godwin here and Tristan Wirfs, because neither Godwin or Wirfs has made their debut yet based on previous injuries. So let me start there. Is Godwin expected to return this week? Is Tristan Wirfs expected to return this week? Again, Wednesday and Thursday. Ankle for Godwin, knee for Tristan Wirfs. Both have been limited on Wednesday and Thursday. Are either expected to make their debut this week against the Jets?
It's been hush-hush. I mean, Todd Bowles is, you talk about Aaron Glenn not giving the media many bones. Todd Bowles is also not just as good, which I'm sure Jets fans
I remember. Yeah.
It's funny. There's another connection for you, but no, I don't think we'll see them. I think again they're going to be a little bit more cautious. Maybe one more week of ramp up. Like even Benjamin Morrison, who missed the whole preseason, he made his debut last week, and he mainly stuck to special teams. So Todd Bowles is very conservative when it comes to like bringing these guys back. Now that being said, I think getting Wirfs back first. If there was someone you're going to push, I would push for Wirfs. Chris Godwin, not saying that he's not going to elevate the offense, but offensive line's a little bit more impacted right now than the wide receiver room. So I don't expect either of them to play, which I think is great for your defense at that point. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if Wirfs at least played, but I'm not expecting it at this point.
Fair enough. And let me just see if there's anything else in True West. Oh, yes. Why not ask about him? Our good old buddy Hassan Reddick.
I was waiting for that one.
Come on. Shoulder injury Wednesday. Oh, limited, but now full participant Thursday. So it sounds like he should be good to go. Although Jet fans are never sure when he's supposed to be full, good to go or not. And leave that one out there. But in all seriousness, Hassan Reddick, what do you make of it? Because to me, after the disaster of last year, and blame Hassan, blame the Jets, whoever you want to blame, I was like, well, that dude just screwed himself out of a lot of money. Who's going to pay this guy after that disaster?
And same thought.
And minutes into the legal tampering period, again, we get that da-na-na. Hassan Reddick signs with the Bucs. I'm like, whoa, he signed like immediately. And then the money, I was like, wow, that is really decent for the season that he delivered. He had one sack. Now, congrats to Buccaneers fans. He's already met that sack total through the first 2 weeks of the season, so God bless. It's only up from here as it pertains to Hassan. But that whole thing seems surprising to me. But the Bucs apparently seem very confident in their background research of the Hassan Reddick situation and taking this risk. Obviously, before the Jets, in his 4 years of production before becoming a Jet, he had 50 sacks. That was in the top 4 of sack production among any pass rusher in football. So the talent was there. It didn't show up for the Jets. What's it been like there in Tampa Bay during his brief tenure so far?
I'll go back a little bit just to the offseason to kind of pitch the idea that the team was sold on him. I think it's kind of like what I talked about earlier with Baker, where it was a lot of locker room and coaching staff. I think Reddick, obviously he got a 1-year deal and still got a lot of money for it, which I was very surprised by. But I think no matter what, this is his 1 year in Tampa. And I've written that because either A, he's going to underperform that deal and they're not going to have him back, or B, he's going to overperform and they're not going to be able to afford to bring him back. So either way, I'm pretty sure it's a 1 year rental. But that being said, I had low expectations, but he was talking about when I think it was he missed OTAs and mini camp and people were immediately like clamoring, like, oh my God, here we go again. But he was there right away for training camp. And when he got asked about it, he said he was working with Yaya Diaby all off season. Those two had a really quick bond together. He got him introduced to everybody in the locker room. And Reddick has really been impactful for this edge rusher group, which I really wanted them to address in round 1. And they didn't. And I really wanted linebacker too, but I'm happy with Ibuka for them. But Reddick so far, he's got 11 pressures on the year. He has the 1 sack, but he's constantly creating chaos, which I think at this point, the Bucs had not had consistent pressure which was half the battle on their defense because their pass coverage last year was just atrocious. The guys were forced to cover for way too long. Guys were having a lot of time to wait for plays and extend plays, and receivers were able to extend their routes. And as a result, when you don't have pressure, that stuff struggles. And Reddick has really helped out. Diaby's been doing well. Reddick, like I said, has been doing well. So yeah, even though he just has the one sack in the box score, and Jets fans obviously feel slighted, deservedly so. Same with the Eagles fans and everything else. I definitely think for the Bucs so far, it's been worth the investment at this point. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays against his former team. Maybe there's a little bit added juice there.
Yeah, and maybe for the Jets side as well, based on how that went both ways. Hey, 5 memberships being gifted to the Boy Green Coffee Club, baby! And normally here, Mr. Harbaugh, every time 5 memberships or more gifted, we play a short little video. So why not Bucs legend John Gruden?
It's Jets, 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 Jets. I love Fireman Ed too.
As do we, Chucky. As do we. By the way, the 5 new members to the Boy Green Coffee Club, shout out to DNY for Life, are Joe Mama Ops, PK2K, Danny, Nikki Boo Boo, Johnny Ace, all getting memberships to the Boy Green Coffee Club. And let's work that in for you, Andrew, here, is that it's the Bucs home opener. It's the Jets road opener here, and you guys are celebrating, what is it, the 50th anniversary? So there's supposed to be a lot of Bucs legends, I'm sure, including perhaps Chucky there, your former Super Bowl coach, celebrating all that wonderful jazz this weekend. So maybe extra juice in the building for all that, too, for the Bucs.
Yeah, and it'll be the creamsicle uniforms as well, which the team's already done their whole rebrand for, which ironically the team usually plays horrible when they wear those uniforms, but so there's a little bit of added juju for the Jets going this week. But yeah, no, it's always fun, especially for a team like the Bucs, where for so long they just were the butt of every joke. Like NFL Network did the documentary 26 and 1 or whatever it was, where it took them 2-3 years to finally win a game. And I think for them, it's just nice that they've had this nice run. Obviously, since Brady was there, they had that good defense in the early 2000s. But the run they're on right now and the way everything is going, it is going to be a big celebration. Obviously, a home opener adds some juice to that. They would like to be healthier for it and have more of their star current players, but they'll settle for probably some Derek Brooks appearances, probably Rondé Barber as well. Obviously, John Lynch is busy with the 49ers, Warren Sapp's in Colorado.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brad Johnson, other guys. So yeah, it should be an interesting game all around.
Yeah, I think so too. Again, we have over 200 people in the room. Sorry for the technical difficulties with my partner, Wudi. He's having some Wi-Fi issues, so our third-party Thursday will have to be covered with our invisible friends, which, again, I could have made another Hassan Reddick joke there. I didn't, but I could have. That opportunity was there. But me just feeling like I brought that up made me feel whole. With that being said, again, we're here with Andrew Harbaugh. By the way, DIY for Life, you have 24 raffle tickets for our contest this month, which is a lot of fun. And again, there's all these weird overflowing Jets connections. Of course, you have Todd Bowles, who's there. He was the former Jets head coach. That was our last winning season, which was a decade ago, believe it or not, in 2015. I know the Bucs, in the middle of our long playoff drought, there's a couple of teams. Broncos were in there. Bucs were in there for a while. The Jets were in there of these teams, and Jets are still there. Of all these teams had not gone to the playoffs for a while. That has since been corrected there for Tampa Bay, which is cool going back to that Baker story and how it all is weirdly connected because Baker Mayfield's NFL debut came in relief of Tyrod Taylor, who was there in Cleveland. They were playing against the Jets on Thursday Night Football with the team coached by Todd Bowles. So there's a lot of extra hoopla here. It sounds like Todd Bowles did not play around with any of those storylines when asked about it, saying he just cares about this Bucs team getting to 3-0. So he doesn't want to play in any of those waters. But do you think it means something extra when we have some of the stuff? We mentioned the Reddick thing earlier. We got Todd Bowles. There just seems to be some extra connectivity here. Does that matter? Or is that media-driven stuff we make up?
I think for Bowles, I think when he says he doesn't care, I genuinely think he doesn't care. I think he's, right. And I think that comes from two things. One, he's obviously been around for a while, but two, he also comes from the Bruce Arians coaching tree. Mm-hmm. And anyone who knows Bruce Arians and his colorful language, being able to use everyone's favorite 4-letter word as a verb, noun, and adjective in a sentence. Todd Bowles is able to adopt to that. Doesn't use the same language, but he uses the same mindset. But no, I think deep down there might be something, because obviously things didn't go great in the way they planned, and obviously that team still is not doing great. But I think for Baker, I also think if anyone's going to have some extra juice going into it, I would say it would be Baker. Because again, that was something special where it came in. I remember that game fondly because that first half, I remember you're just like, okay, when are they going to pull the trigger? And Hugh Jackson's going to be like, okay, I've seen enough of this offense struggling.
Yeah.
And they finally did. And then like that second half, it was just completely different. And Baker obviously never looked back, despite some ups and downs along the way. But yeah, I think if anyone's going to have some extra juice, it'd be Baker. Like I said, I genuinely think Bowles is probably just going to be happy to get the 3-0. If it comes against the Jets, sure, a little bit sweeter. And yeah, it'll be the 50th anniversary kickoff for the team. So I think enough of those little things might add up subconsciously, especially getting into it. But yeah, I mean, Baker, like we said, still going at Chauncey Gardner-Johnson after they got the win already. So if anyone's going to have the extra juice, it's going to be him.
Yeah, let's get into this very weird nugget quirk. I mean, hell, I wish the Jets were having this sort of quirk about the Buccaneers starting all these seasons 2-0, yet they haven't been able to get to 3-0. The last time apparently the Bucs were 3-0 was 2005, 20 years ago, for Pete's sake. So what is it? Did the Bucs just get high on their hog and they overlook whoever this third opponent is? Is it just happenstance? This is just sort of what has happened in each of these years? What is the commonality in all these 2-0 starts, which I imagine is great because there's all kinds of playoff indicators for teams that start out 2-0, what that translates to later in the season, but not getting over that 3-0 hump is an interesting little wrinkle here.
I think, and this is no pun intended because history is repeating itself.
Yeah,
they get beaten up usually pretty quickly, and again,
okay.
That's happening now.
Okay,
so there's some injury aspect to it, but there's also this team, the way they're scheduled and the time I've been covering them, they get. I hate this. It wasn't layups because you beat the Texans and the Falcons, two potential playoff teams. They get a little bit of a softer start, and then like the middle of their schedule is usually like hell in a handbasket. And then that back end of it is a little bit softer of a landing, which is the case again. They have a very rough 5-6 week stretch here from October through November. And then the back end of November through December is a little bit easier. But it's getting to that point is where they've just got to be 500 basically coming out of it. But yeah, I think it's more so the injuries over the last couple of years have really stacked up. Jason Light, you want to talk about taking a chance on Hassan Reddick. He's shown to be one of those GMs that really likes taking chances on those veteran players who are able to just plug and play right away, have a little bit of a role. And I think those are usually the guys that end up getting hurt. The team's been getting a little bit younger, but he also is not afraid to take chances on guys with a little bit of an injury history. So that adds up as well. So really it's the health of the team ends up getting bad, which I saw somebody asked, I can't remember. It was one of the Bucs writers down there. They said, at what point did we start questioning the medical staff? And the person said it was like, it really comes down to like, these aren't like soft tissue issues or anything like that. These are like just freak injuries, like torn pecs, broken foot, a broken collarbone, like just complete bad luck is what seems to be striking this, which it goes back to you got to meet at the 50-yard line of Raymond James, and everybody has to bring their thing. But in all honesty, like I said, it's just they seem to get beaten up right away, and then they heal up in the middle of the year, and then they're able to finish the year strong, win the NFC South, and then unfortunately lose in the first round of the playoffs, it seems at this point. But most teams are just happy to get the playoffs. But this team, like I said, they're built for something better this year. Sports Illustrated had them rated to be the number one team in the entire league with the best record.
Wow.
At one point, which I remember reading, and I was like, okay, so it's not just me hyping them up for no reason. Yeah, like when they're healthy, they could be 3-0, they could be 4-0, 5-0. It's just they go limping into these games, and you end up having an offensive line where you've got your interior is Elijah Klein, Ben Bredeson playing center instead of guard, and you've got Michael Jordan, who got picked off the Bengals cut list after training camp starting. Yeah, and ironically, he plays guard as well, so it works perfectly.
Ballin'.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's just the health of this team is just in tatters in recent years. So that's why they usually struggle to get to that 3-0.
All right, let's wrap up here. Now, all of the evidence, if we were playing Inspector Clue here, Inspector Gadget, and we're looking at this, the Jets are a massive underdog, naturally, as Tampa Bay's at home. They're 2-0. The Jets are 0-2. The injuries, which we talked about, obviously the Bucs have multiple very serious ones that are season-ending, and then the Jets, as I mentioned here on the show, that several of their did not practices or DNPs on here. Justin Fields has already been ruled out, so it's going to be Tyrod Taylor. Jermaine Johnson is someone who has not practiced in back-to-back days. That's not a good sign for him. Kene Nguanu, their lead returner, has not practiced. Their starting receiver, Josh Reynolds, has not practiced. And Jay Tufele, who's more of a depth player, he's battling an illness. Everyone else was at least a limited upgrade so far. So the Jets are going to likely be missing multiple starters in this Jets-Bucs game. So everything says the Buccaneers are going to kill the Jets. Obviously, are coming off the Week 2 bloodbath against Buffalo, and Tampa Bay just seems like they have this moxie with Baker Mayfield. So that is a long-winded pitch of saying everything in the universe, the planets are aligning that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to kick the Jets' ass at home and pass the biscuits. Are you taking those signs from the universe and saying that is exactly what's going to happen, a blowout victory for Tampa Bay? Are you saying, hey, man, this 2-0 whatever or some other weird shit's going to happen here, and this may be closer or different than what the gods seem to be suggesting this is?
I don't think it's going to be the ass kicking that necessarily everyone's predicting. I saw what was it? I think it was NFL Network. All their analysts picked the Bucs, and everyone's like, "Oh no, you jinxed us." Which again, I think the Bucs have shown it when they should have a shootout in a game. It's just a defensive struggle, and when it should be a defensive struggle, they end up being a little bit more explosive on defense. Like they've scored more points against the Falcons. But then the Falcons just held the Vikings to 6 points and made J.J. McCarthy look like he didn't know what he was doing back in Pee Wee, and held Justin Jefferson in check and all that. But I think it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be close going into halftime, and maybe the second half breaks the doors open. But I think even at that point, I think it's going to be much closer than people expect. Like I could easily see this being a 21-17, 24-17 type game for Tampa. Maybe they get an extra score in there off a defensive touchdown at the end or something crazy like that. But I think the game is going to be a lot closer potentially than the score may end up having it, or it just ends up being close in general. So
do the Jets have any chance of winning in your mind?
No.
Okay. hey, I just want to call it as it is and see. Okay.
I think if there is a crack in the dam, it's going to be getting the pressure on Baker Mayfield, because that was what the Texans were able to do last week, and they were able to keep him in check most of that game until that final drive, and they were just gassed. Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. had their way with that offensive line for the most part. I think missing Jermaine Johnson for you guys is going to be tough, but I think if you're able to get that interior pressure, because that's the group that's really vulnerable right now. Like if you're Quinnen Williams, sure, you could see him having a big game and making a big difference there. And if they can stop the run, that's also going to be a big thing, where week 1, they couldn't run the ball and it was much closer. Week 2, they were able to run the ball and it made the difference in the end. So that's really where it comes down to, I think, is the trenches is going to decide everything.
Well, Andrew, I want to thank you for joining us for this Jets-Bucs game. I resisted the urge of using all kinds of pirate terms like, booty, ship, arg, matey. A lot of comments were trying to engage me to do so. Pirates of the Caribbean, perhaps. A little Jack Sparrow here or there, and I resisted that urge as well. So I just want to pat myself on the back for that. But I wanted to do it. I'm going to be honest.
Are you sure you don't want to get one in, though?
Oh, well, you've sort of left some things open, but I'm just going to allow us both to perhaps walk off a certain plank. Perhaps.
There you go.
And got it. All right.
Again.
All right. Excellent. Hey, better late than never. So I appreciate it, everybody, and appreciate you guys coming on the show and doing it. So just hit it for that. that. During the seriousness, Andrew, thanks for taking the time. It's always a lot of fun to network and link up before these games, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Paul. Thanks for reaching out.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.